Focus on the savvy side of 9 to 5 with the Focus Group.
Try, really try.
Listen, laugh, and learn with Tim and John.
I never try anything. I just do it.
Welcome back to the Focus Group. John Nash with Tim Bennett. FocusGroupRadio.com is the site. You'll learn all about the show there, including the platforms we're on, and we have our video and audio streams there, including the new Unbuttoned, available on Tuesdays. I'm pushing Unbuttoned.
DFG Unbuttoned.
DFG Unbuttoned.
Yeah.
DFG Unbuttoned.
Hold on.
Tim's a better brand policeman than I am often.
No, well, you labeled it differently.
We did. Yeah, we had to because
I went and relabeled it.
Yeah. Oh, I did that, did I?
I did.
All right.
We're doing business before.
We're doing business.
Catch up.
Sitting next to me is none other than Matt Skallerud, a good friend of ours, who chose today, unwittingly, to blend the two of us.
Ah.
He's got a little bit of red, and in the collar, there's a little bit of blue.
Rose between two thorns.
Such a
But you said you wore pink for a reason.
pink banana. I just thought I would kind of go with the theme.
Yeah.
So Matt is the owner, would you say president, owner, chairman, emeritus of Pink Banana Media. And now he's going to be helping us with a new segment called #ILoveGay, the Influencer Spotlight. And I think that one of the reasons we wanted to have Matt on, and one of the reasons he wanted to join us, was to talk about the very different world we live in now with how companies talk to us, advertising, media, and marketing. And this notion of influencers in general. We were on the phone prepping for our conversation, and when we were kids, an influencer, I suppose, would be an athlete. Mm-hmm. Or even Tony the Tiger, I guess, was an influencer. Get those box tops because then you can order some. But you've expanded that definition, so we're going to get there in a sec. But why don't we first talk about the state today of a media situation we've all matured in, and that's LGBT media.
Yeah. Well, let's do a little geeky history first.
You're allowed. Okay.
Only 60 seconds. And no, I was lucky because I was involved with the LGBT internet back in the 90s. And back then it was just very different.
What were the sites? You and
GayWired.com.
Yep.
And we had SheWired and GaySports.com. We had this whole network, but the Gay Web Monkey is the...
Yep, I remember that.
So that was fun. And we sold that to Hear Media and kind of moved along into what we're doing today. But no, back then, it was just very different. You would create a website, and the website was content and personals, and we had retailing and so forth. But you would be able to keep people captive in those sites for sometimes an hour. And so they'd come in, because there wasn't Facebook, there wasn't MySpace. Remember MySpace?
Yep, I do.
There weren't these things that were distracting them, and they would spend their time. And if your business was selling banner advertising and so forth, you did very well. The geeky part is that you had, on average, about 10 page views per user. It's the page views. Google Analytics, they give us all this number. How many web pages does somebody go to when they're on your website? Back then, you can easily get 10 minimum, and usually a lot more. Today, it's 1 point something. That's the key.
1 point.
1 point something.
One and a fraction of a page.
And that's the key. That's the geeky fundamental part, is that you go from all these page views once upon a time down to this, and that's because at the time they would go to your front page. They would discover what you had, and plus there was personals and all the things before social media. And if you just fast forward to where we're at today with this 1 point something, that's where you have Facebook and so forth. And now people are saying, I don't know what I'm looking for in terms of content, but I'm going to find out what my friends are interested in. And so they see a really good headline, they click, they go, but they don't stay. And a lot of media companies, even just any company with a website, they have not always been aware of this trend. They went from a lot of page views to very little. Google was somewhere in between here, where Google was kind of coming in and saying, don't worry, you don't have to navigate their website. We'll just help you through search. And especially with Google News. Google News was kind of, for a little while, the dominant way that this was, that people would be able to find out what's kind of going on in the world. But today in social media, so it's that 1 point something, and that's key, because what it's done is it's shifted the power from, wow, I really want my website to be perfect, and that front page is got to be designed just right to drive traffic, into, I got to make sure my headline is really, really good. And so there's a whole business, and a lot of things have developed from that. But so businesses are figured out. That's why Google and Facebook are the top places that all this ad revenue is going to.
And that's why. So is the behavior because back in the beginning,
Yeah.
there weren't a lot of places you could go to, so you would stay longer because you knew, okay, if I get out of here, I'm not going to find something else that's like GayWired or one of the other sites. And now, if you don't like something, you can just go search and find a million other things like it. Is that what?
Plus, there was a lot of
Driving it.
Plus a lot of the personal side, because now your social aspects online are really through social media. But back then, that didn't exist. So
And so for the LGBTQ community, gaywired.com was a little more than a destination.
Yeah.
I mean, it was more of a community in
Yeah.
some senses. And now you're saying that kind of community has been moved to our networks and friends on a Facebook kind of situation.
yeah, and so businesses have known this for a while. So they're spending all their money on Google, on Facebook, but the dynamics continue to change there too. So all of a sudden, Facebook, it's become more expensive to advertise. And if your personal and your business persona are kind of merged, you can do very well on Facebook, where you can post about this show, or you can post about a destination and get really great visibility and engagement and so forth. But if you're not, if you're distinct between your personal life and business life, and you post business things onto a business page, doesn't really get seen that much anymore. And so that's really key.
Would that be
is
like
that-
a LinkedIn?
Well, kind of, but Facebook being the dominant one, now if you're trying to get people to be aware of what you're doing in business and it doesn't show up that much, business companies are going, what else do I do? And so for a while, they've been looking Instagram, Twitter, and looking, what's going on there. And all of a sudden, that's where the influencers are at. What is an influencer? That's another little geeky story. I mean, you look at an easy example is Australia, Tourism Australia. Years ago, they're on Instagram. They're doing, there's case studies about them. They did very well, but they would find all this user-generated photos, and they would take some of those and they would
And that's
repost
that's
them out there.
vacationers that they're visiting Sydney, or they went out to Ayers Rock or something, and they're sharing that.
Yeah.
So they somehow hooked into that.
They did it the hard way on Instagram. You would repost it. It's not as easy on Instagram. They do that on purpose. But so all of a sudden you've got this Tourism Australia is kind of giving people their 5 minutes of fame, where all of a sudden they pick some really good photos, they get it out there.
Okay.
And the thing is, some people wanted to have more than 5 minutes, and some people they saw that and they're like, "Wow, I like this. And that's just one of 1,000 stories of how influencers came to be." But Instagram is strong. YouTube also, for those that said, "I have something to say," and it's on video, and so they're out there and they've got these followings, and that's part of the equation. But the other part that you see is very much on Twitter, where if they're posting these photos, they're posting video, but also it could include bloggers, and they've got all this stuff, but then they want to share it with the world. So they're sharing it, and when they share it on Twitter, Twitter's much more wide open. It's like the big city where, it's just,
So your
companies out
example though of tourism and a destination, there's a sexy quality to that. There's a very built-in photo quality to it, where you can share your experience. What happens if you're a business that doesn't have that appeal? Maybe you
The
own
new
a
salon in town.
Yeah, or you own a company that has a maid service or something, a cleaning service. Like, how do you say, how does that business, how do they get their customers in this new?
Yeah, well, they've still got to come up with some sort of fun way, whether it's a salon. There's all sorts of, take photos before and after. This is what the person looked like when they first came in, and this is what
Right,
they
I
look
like
like
that
coming
one.
out.
Okay.
That's the whole deal, is that when you're out there and you're posting these, it could be posted on Instagram, but when you're really focused on influencer again, it's people who are posting, sharing their photos, their video, but they're also using this kind of structured language, hashtags, linking up the profiles of who they're talking about, and then also they're engaged. So it's kind of two components. They're posting these things properly. They look really good and compelling, and there's a lot of answers for any businesses. But they're posting them, but they're also engaged with others that are similar to them. Like if it's gay travel, or if it's gay travel in New York, they know there's others that are out there. They're engaged means they like, they comment, they share, they retweet their stuff. And so all of a sudden you've got these whole communities out there. And essentially, it's not just influencers anymore. Once you start looking at it this way, you realize, wow, a lot of companies get this. It's a lot of the nonprofits, Lambda Legal, HRC, they're influencers in this definition, where they're out there posting, and that's the right way. They're engaged with their user base. And when you see their activity and you see the numbers, it's incredible. Pride Festival, same thing.
So I'm confused about these hashtags. So here's why
I knew that.
I listened to
hashtag.
listen to some of these other web series or podcasts, and the person will go, and then I hashtag went to the store, and then all of a sudden I hashtag pulled my pants down, and then I hashtag. So
Hashtag Dream Whip.
so they're talking in this language.
Yeah.
And I know we've called this based upon you hashtag I love gay. So what's the purpose of that? So if I am Joe Smith and I'm sitting in Des Moines, what do? I go to Google and hashtag I love gay or hashtag something, and then something comes up, or Where does that come into play when you hashtag these
Yeah,
things?
whether it's Instagram, Twitter, you're there. People are on their phones and they're kind of perusing through. You see some photos, you like what you see, and it's hashtag gay travel. So maybe you're thinking, oh, that's kind of cool. I'm interested in gay travel. You click that hashtag, and now it's going to show you some of the top other photos.
It's
and other
on gay
posts
travel
that people have posted. So it's kind of like back in the day when you were trying to put keywords in your website for search. Now it's kind of a keywords in the form of a hashtag in social media.
So would you do that
I
on
like
Google?
That analogy.
Would
No,
you
with
go
Google-
into the Google search and do hashtag
Oh, you can actually,
gay travel and it
Google,
will come up?
because Google is always trying to integrate social media in different ways. So if you type in a hashtag, they will give you kind of direct links to some of the top tweets. Usually, it's almost always Twitter.
But if you don't use Google, you could use hashtag sorting within the different platforms.
Yeah, if you're on Twitter, you click on if it's hashtag gay travel. If you're in Iowa and you're interested in gay life there, and you're looking at a photo or you're looking at a tweet, and somebody else hashtag gay Iowa or gay Cedar Rapids, you go, oh, that's interesting. Let's see. Some people use, others are not, but means nobody's using gay Cedar Rapids. But, just because it doesn't really,
But-
they are using like hashtag gay Miami or hashtag gay NYC. You figure out which ones are useful.
So you make it sound. I take that back. It sounds the way I'm interpreting this that hashtags serve a behavioral function for how you want to access information. Does that? I'm probably not in the right zone.
Yeah,
Would you phrase that
It's
differently?
search. I always look at it like search. You want to be discovered. So when people hashtag, they're really putting themselves out there so they can be so that their post, their tweet, or Instagram photo can be discovered, so people can find it. So which is why Instagrammers had lots of space for it. So they would put lots and lots of way too many.
Oh.
And in fact, one of the hot ones was Instagay. So But then when I was talking to these guys in Brazil recently, they were at they were out during New Year's, and I said, "Hey, what's the number one app that they use in Brazil? Is it Grindr? Is it Hornet? What do they use?" He goes, "Instagram." And we just follow. I think they have actually their own special ones for. They find somebody that they like on Instagram through a hashtag. They may have one just more for Brazil. Click on it, just say, "Hey, what's up?" That sort of thing. But it's very
Wow.
It's very real time. It's very engaged.
And that's almost, since it's not an app, there's almost a quality of running into someone in a bar.
Yeah. Or on the street. Hey.
I like the look of you. I think I'll say hello. But it's not because they're on an app. It's because they like the pictures or the activities, right?
It was a good answer. It was interesting. It was not what I was expecting
No.
at all.
No, and I'm sure Grindr and some of those sites don't like it either,
No,
right?
I'm sure they do not. And so you're seeing that, but to close the idea of hashtags, I always say, think of one for themes. Gay travel's easy. Gay sports is also, but you're not just making them up. You're finding out what are people using. So you just type it into your Twitter or Instagram search, and you'll see what's going on.
So how did you come up with hashtag I love gay?
Well, we wanted to come because that's when the three I was saying, one for theme, one for region, because sometimes we want to be found regionally, and a third that could be more specific to an event, IGLTA 2018. I love gay. So I love gay was a way to kind of like separate out the conversations from people that wanted us to notice them, because I love gay is a business where all we're doing is we're participating in those conversations just like an influencer. Just like Lambda Legal and HRC, well, they're all playing in that sandbox. And NYC Pride, same thing. So all of a sudden, I love gay. So we have I Love Gay Theater, I Love Gay NYC, and each one will kind of focus on, I Love Gay Theater focuses on theater worldwide. I Love Gay NYC focuses on things that are happening in New York.
Okay.
We have people following both, and if they are following both, and we post something about New York theater, there's a really good chance they're going to see that. And businesses that want to participate with us, a lot of times they'll use hashtag I Love Gay, so it shows up on our radar. Our editors take a look and go, oh, that's a good one. I think I'm going to retweet that.
I think when Matt returns from, you're departing.
Sydney.
You're going to Sydney, Australia. Cedar Fall. What was it?
Oh, yeah, Cedar Rapids.
Cedar Rapids. I think when you're back from Sydney, we need to have a conversation about upgrading our hashtag process.
So this should be our segment then should be hashtag I love gay influencer spotlight.
Yeah. Because what happened was, since we started doing this like over a year ago, you end up engaging with lots of different individuals, including influencers. And so, especially in travel, here in New York, we have like Ravi Roth, Nomadic Boys are in London, a couple of men. These are all influencers that are out there that are very engaged with their own audiences, and we've just kind of stumbled into
Do these
this.
people make a buck?
Oh, all right. I was just going to literally say.
You probably would
I
have
was
been
gonna
out of age.
I was going to say more graciously, how does one go about monetizing?
Monetizing such an endeavor.
The PC answer, but it's the real answer, is we're in transition now. Everybody's trying to figure that out, the right way. The simplest has been, I don't think it's the right model, but Instagrammers may have like 100,000 followers, and so companies will say, wow, based on my little formula and my spreadsheet, for 100,000 followers, I'll pay you $500 if you just post something about us. But it's kind of, it's very, I hate the word authentic. It's overused.
Well,
it's very inauthentic.
The case you're making, though, is that there's not a direct link between someone's followers and this little spreadsheet formula that says, well, we'll give them $500 if they wear our underwear.
Yeah.
Because that doesn't mean someone's going to go out and buy it. They might be engaging in the feed strictly for other reasons.
I looked at, Stuart Elliott from
Yeah,
the New York
yeah,
Times. So
yeah.
we just had him on recently, and, a famed New York Times ad columnist. And he, in the space for decades, an influencer, I would say, right?
Yeah.
And went to Northwestern, great education within journalism, and now he's competing with some vlogger in a basement, right? So I'm trying to figure out how do we sort through this issue of just somebody that's actually really trying to do everything right. And maybe this is the bad example with Stewart, but I'm just thinking of somebody that's been established and actually worked as a journalist versus someone that could just get on and say, all of a sudden, I'm going to start commenting on stuff and clutter the feeds. I mean, is there a way to ferret some of this out or no?
There's a different way of looking at that. Someone else would say, the guy that's coming in new and saying, I'm going to clutter the feed. Fortunately, they're probably not doing that. They're just posting things out there. They've got their own voice. They're going to say, I have a different style of wanting to do this. I want to disrupt this.
Okay.
So essentially what you're looking at is that Stewart has got to compete on his own merits, but in this new medium. And he's doing a good job.
Yeah.
So when I'm on Twitter, I see that he does great posts. He hashtags correctly. He'll connect who he's talking about with the @ symbol and connect it up. So, and all that does is it makes it so you're much more, the tweets are much more engaged, and people could follow through and see who he's talking about. And he responds to things.
Right.
So that's
another good point, by the way.
it's being engaged.
He's engaged, yeah.
But if he wasn't doing that, if he was doing what a lot of companies do, which is just sort of throw stuff up. They just think, I'm just going to throw these things out on a Twitter about what I'm doing. Maybe they'll just post from Facebook to Twitter, or they'll, what have you. And if they're not really paying attention to who's talking about them, they're not engaged, then it won't really work. Then one would say that those Stuart Elliott's of the world that used to be influencers in a different time, in a different medium, haven't adapted to where they're at. So you're seeing all these things play themselves out now. But the idea is that none of us has a choice, because all this is going on right in front of our very eyes.
Well, and there you go. And you just put a nice little cap on that with the facts on the ground. And the reality is, I could wish for the days of 10 newspapers, 3 networks, and X number of silos for expertise to come out of, and you had to be in that lane. Everybody's a publisher, or they can be.
Yeah.
And that goes to your influencer discussion as well. An influencer no longer has to be a top paid athlete. And we were on the phone talking about this. It could be a grandmother somewhere in the Midwest who's done a great job making Toll House cookies, and she shares that recipe. Nestle drops on, people drop on.
Everyone's making her cookies.
Yeah.
What's your biggest, so having been in this space for probably one of the original folks, Pioneer.
Pioneer.
What is your biggest challenge in trying to sort through this as you're working with companies or your own influencer network? What challenge?
Well, just the education side. Like the easiest companies for us to work with are those that are just that are speaking the same language. They're in that game. Anecdotally, I'll tell. It's a fun story. It is from where I'm sitting. I was sitting on the couch one day on a Saturday, and I get a Facebook message and from somebody I don't know. And so at first you're like, should I even accept it?
Yeah.
All right, accept, because I don't know what he wants to say until I accept it. So I say accept, and it's an agency with Bud Light, and they say we've created this video. It's July. We created it for Pride Month, but we have some time, and we really want to get a big push out in this week. And what can you do? And we want to work with all of the influencers you have listed on your site. And I was just like, well, I was feeling lazy that day too. So I said, well, I don't have time to drop everything and just go through and broker this. Here's all their contact info. You can make outreach to them all directly. It's easy to contact them anyway. You can just reach them on Twitter or Facebook as well.
All right, I see your point. But
I made it easier for him to contact them. But he also worked with us. He had us do this thing, so we got out there and we pushed this video out, and so did almost everybody we work with. And within that week, they got what they were looking for.
Wow.
And it was just because they're in that game, they're in that space.
They understood what they were doing when they reached out to you, and so but so on the education curve though, you'll sit in front of a client now and then who doesn't necessarily get it, but they might get the edges of it, and
It's harder. We're a little spoiled because like last year Comcast gets it, so Comcast is doing hashtag Comcast Faces of Pride, which is their own unique hashtag for their Pride season last year. But they did all these photos, and they wanted the photos to get out, and then they did a lot of sponsorship of Pride, so they found us and it worked out. But also, we didn't work with them, but we participated and engaged with AT&T, same thing. Hashtag We Are Bold. And they did this great campaign, and they had Adam Buska that does the No Hate campaign. He went all through a variety of Pride festivals. He took photos for AT&T, and they had this fantastic campaign that was really Twitter and Instagram first, more than anything else. Now, anybody who's in that space, which obviously they're doing it for a reason, because there's millions paying attention, saw that right away. But for all the people that are not really paying attention, it wasn't a print ad, and it wasn't.
well, now that you raise it, as you said that, I'm sitting here thinking, okay, I read a great deal. I read a lot. I read all the time. But I'm reading aggregated news. I'm reading curated stuff, and I'm not on the social platforms. So that AT&T campaign, and the way you described it sounds like a really great branding effort, especially to reinforce their LGBTQ chops. Were they purposely directing that to the 18 to 35-year-old crowd? Because I think that, I'm not a Luddite, but I'm not all over hashtags either.
Fortunately, you don't have to. Well, number one, I think they did want part of their answer was I'm sure they did want that audience, but the audience is moving up in that age group too, and the hashtagging is just a way to help that discoverability as we were describing. But the real trick is just simply if you post something good, and people are engaged with it, and they share it, and they like, and the next thing you know, that post starts to show up in other people's news feeds on Twitter. So people are paying attention, whether it's Instagram or we all know Facebook, but this isn't a Facebook conversation. This is really Twitter and Instagram. But if you're on Twitter and you're on your phone and you're perusing, what you're seeing are things that others are engaged with. So if they post these things and they tag the right people that are in the photo, and then Adam Buska pushes it through his network, it starts to show up a lot on that feed. And my guess is that more and more of this, by the way, is probably going to merge into our mainstream life, which means more of it will probably show up into Google and those sort of places that are the Yahoo, Bing, Google, all the places that people kind of go to when they're first starting, maybe on a start page, because those are what's called trending.
Got it.
All this stuff is trending conversations, and they're all getting better and better trying to figure out, because that's what we want to know. What are people talking about?
Are you getting paid for this? I mean, will companies pay for are companies paying for this like they would traditional media then? So they're
Very much so.
they're not afraid to say, oh, I thought it was going to be $30.
Well, that probably was a while ago. They thought it could be on the cheap, but now I think they probably have to.
But you had asked, like, how do the influencers make money? And I had given the one thing which I didn't believe in, which is that with Instagram, paying somebody $500. But really, they're learning how to work with brands and be able to. It's got to be more of an alignment. If it's like a sponsorship, a brand or a company would say that person or that individual, he seems well aligned with what we're doing. But for our own company, we've kind of productized this, which means we put packages together that said you could hire some influencers, come out to your destination, or come out to a Pride festival. They'll run around, take lots of photos, promote you, and then we'll take that and we'll promote it through a blog. We'll do a targeted Facebook advertised post, because Facebook's great when you pay them. Because when you pay them, they have
That's
really
a new algorithm too. Is now
it's probably the dominant one as far as if you want to reach. Let's just say the one I did recently: gay bears who want to go on a cruise. The only ways to do it is Facebook. And
it makes sense. It makes sense. How else are you going to advertise that? Because that is like like X number of levels into the
Yeah.
Well, listen, Matt, we want to thank you for joining us. So so this new segment we have, which is hashtag I Love Gay Influencer Spotlight with Pink Banana Media and Matt Skallerud. So next time you visit us, are you going to bring us an influencer?
We're going to bring some fun people in here.
Great. So that was a good lesson for John and I because we talk about it all the time, and we need our own lesson in getting our our messaging out correctly for social media. So thanks for joining us today. And you, John mentioned you're off somewhere. Where are you going?
Sydney, Australia. So, yep, if you go on.
Mardi Gras.
Wow.
Hashtag Mardi Gras 40. It's the 40th anniversary.
Well, we're going to check to see if are you trending right now? Did you check? I don't know. Maybe we'll have to see.
I'm just not popular enough.
So thanks for joining us, Matt. We'll see you in a few weeks when you bring some influencers with us.
When you're back.
When you're back. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, John and I have a quick shop talk about some of the boycotts of the NRA, some of the companies that are boycotting. So stay with us. We'll be right back.
Brought to you by Volkswagen. Visit VW.com to learn more.